All right. We're back. So, we had a hearing the other day in Washington. And I was stunned to hear the truth. I wasn't surprised. I was just kind of stunned by the total capitulation, I guess is the right phrase. There was this guy who was holding a hearing. His name is Rohrbacher, Republican out of California. And he was having this hearing about the situation in Afghanistan. And this was supposed to be an organization or a group of people who were answering the Foreign Affairs Committee on situation as it stood. And he asked them how much they were spending in Afghanistan. And I wish you could see the video. I encourage you to go to our website and see it, because it was actually like crickets. I'm going to play it for you so you can hear the audio portion of it, but you can't see the incredulity on the face of this dude when he asks these questions and he can't get a simple answer. Representative Jerry Connolly, a Democrat from Virginia, called the witnesses' inability to rattle off the facts a stunning development. He said to them, "How can you come to a congressional oversight hearing on this subject and not know these answers? Like that wouldn't be a question on the tip of one's tongue." Really was stunning. Because these people are charged with knowing the answers. I mean, these are the people who are prosecuting that war. And what really bothered me was not even so much the fact that they couldn't talk about money. It's one thing to talk about how much money we're spending. It's a completely different story altogether when you're talking about they couldn't tell these questioners how many men and women had been killed or injured in the last 12 months. That was the question. I want you to listen to it. This was, just to set it up, on Monday, this was a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing on Afghanistan. Representative Dana Rohrbacher, from Republican from California, asked 3 Obama administration specialists some simple questions, and he couldn't get any answers. It's really beyond the pale of stunning.
Don't know where to begin here. How much are we spending annually in Afghanistan now? How much is the cost to the American taxpayer?
Silence.
Anybody know?
For the record, they're looking at each other.
I think each of us have somewhat different budgets there. The total budget,
Yeah, what would be? Nobody knows the total budget, what we're spending in Afghanistan? It's a hearing on Afghanistan. Can I have an estimate?
I'm sorry, Congressman.
I'll just have to say that it's disheartening to have a briefing from our government people who are involved in a project, and they can't tell me how much we're spending annually. And
it is an amount.
How many killed and wounded have we suffered in the last 12 months? Mr. Dumont, would you know that?
Silence.
Sir, I do not. I'll have to get back with you on that one also.
We don't know what the cost is, and we don't even know how many killed and wounded are. And we're supposed to believe that you fellas have a plan that's going to end up in a positive way in Afghanistan? Holy cow.
We do.
You see, the simple truth is that these people are so inept. This is the ambassador, folks. Guy by the name of James Dobbins. He's a overweight, balding, pencil-pushing, bureaucratic, pencil-necked geek. How could he dare go to a congressional hearing and not have the most basic answers? You see, if this happened in a corporate boardroom, and the chairman of the board or the chief executive officer was expecting people to come in and report to him about a specific project they were working on, and Rohrabacher called it a project, when the truth is it's a war. But if a CEO asked you to come in and explain where you are on a given project, and you couldn't answer where you were budgetarily, or how many people you had working on it, or what progress was, or what the end game of the project was. I mean, if you can't say what that project is supposed to accomplish, you wouldn't be fired. He would cover his microphone, or he would just say to the board or the rest of the meeting, I'm going to ask you to hold on for a moment here. And he'd whistle somebody in, and he would whisper in their ear. And at the end of that meeting, you would go to walk out of there, and they would grab you by both arms as security, and they would escort you to the front door. They would hand you a box of the 10 things that they bothered to pick up off your desk and tell you if you come back into the building again, you'll be arrested for trespassing. But you see, because we are talking here about people who have an incredible amount of authority and an extraordinarily broad amount of power, which they are clearly abusing, this goes beyond mere incompetence, ineptitude. This is malfeasance, a criminal malfeasance. Now, if you don't know what the word malfeasance means, malfeasance is when your attorney stands up in the middle of the courtroom and he says, Your Honor, my client admitted guilt to me, and because it was a heinous crime, I don't have the courage, I don't have I can't just be silent. I have to tell the truth. Malfeasance would be you give your family member access to your bank account and they wipe it out and go on a drug spree or a spending spree, or just malfeasance is when your accountant steals your money. But you see, that's all business malfeasance. There are civil penalties for that and some criminal penalties. You know, an attorney who steals your money from you, if you hand your attorney money to hold in a trust account and he abuses that privilege and that trust that you've given to him, he can be prosecuted. He can lose his law license. He can even go to jail. But when we're talking here about people who are not representing their own interests, but the larger interests of our nation, and they are tasked with the authority to act on our behalf, it approaches the different level of a high crime. High crime not meaning big, but high meaning an abuse of power so heinous that these people should be charged with criminal malfeasance, high crimes and misdemeanors, prosecuted, and then hung. And I do mean that. Upon a guilty verdict, they should be executed. You know why? Because the truth is, even when given the opportunity to come forth and explain themselves, they couldn't. Ambassador James Dobbins, he's the top envoy to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And here's what he said. Well, he came back out and as a follow-up, he offered State Department and U.S. Agency for International Development spent $2 billion a year there, and there have been about 2,200 casualties since 2001. That's the answer he came up with after the hearing now, right? Guess what? About 2,200 casualties? No. The truth is there's been 2,292 American fatalities alone, and we're not even talking about woundings. So far this year, 113 American lives have been lost, killed. And that's the lowest number we've had since 2004. The truth is, this war costs us not $2 billion a year, but $6.7 billion a month. And this guy is running it? You see, the idea that these people don't have any clue about a war that they are in charge of prosecuting, not only not on the tip of their tongue, but even when they produce the information later and it's inaccurate. That is a level of malfeasance that is beyond criminal and becomes a national crime, a crime against the nation. Therein lies the high crime and misdemeanor threshold being reached. That's essentially what it is, folks. Nothing less and nothing more. The real problem here is these are only 3 people in a government made up of literally tens of thousands of others who are just like them. There is not a hair's breadth of difference in these people, those over at the EPA, those over at the FAA, the FCC, the DEA, the DHS, the CIA, some of these agencies are less likely to involve life and limb of our youth, but they're all wasting our treasure and they have no idea where it is other than what they can pocket for themselves. But when we're talking about the lives of our youth, and here's a guy who's living literally on the lives of young American men and women. That's what he makes his living at. He makes his living as an ambassador to 2 countries that we're embroiled in a war with, where young American men are coming back with limbs missing, eyes missing, brain injuries that will never allow them to live and function as they did before. We're talking about families who are losing their fathers and their mothers. We're talking about children who will never know what it's like to grow up with a dad or a mom. We're talking about people coming back to this nation with horrific injuries that, for all intents and purposes, their life will never be the same. And this 2-bit piece of trash doesn't even know how many. See, that is a level that should be so intolerable to the American people that this ambassador, Dobbins, and he's the dolt just like his name sounds, this guy, in the days of our forefathers, would have been dragged out and tarred and feathered. He would have been put on trial. They would have shown the evidence against him for his clear abuse of his authority and his power, his complete and utter malfeasance. They would have found him guilty, and they would have hung him. And he's one of thousands upon thousands upon thousands who are just like him. You've got a president who will lie right to the face of the American people. You want to know why the government is full of Mr. Dobbins? Well, it started long before Barack Obama came on the scene. But you see, they're emboldened by the example of the chief executive officer. Well, if he's so disreputable, if he's such a buffoon, if he's so inept that he doesn't know about this until he reads about it on the cover of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, why should it matter that I don't do my job? If he is encouraging domestic government-sponsored terrorism against our nation, why shouldn't I, says the EPA? Why shouldn't I, says the DHS? Why shouldn't I, says the IRS? Why shouldn't we, says the NSA and the FBI? I mean, that's what we have achieved, ladies and gentlemen. You have no risk of dying from an Iranian attack. I mean, the odds that you will be injured in a terrorist attack in the United States of America are relatively infinitesimal. The odds that your own government will be the cause of your demise, at this point in time, are the only odds that matter, and they're about 100%. You may get lucky and die of a heart attack or old age before the tyranny turns from soft to hard, but make no mistake about it. Right now, your federal government has a fist that is made of stainless steel and titanium. It's shiny, it's hungry, and it can't wait to get its grip on your throat. But it is covered. It's covered by a thick glove of velvet. And it doesn't stop it from doing damage, but you just don't realize the amount of damage it's capable of. And when that glove comes off, and we've about reached that point, you will see a terror unleashed on this nation by your own government that would be the stuff of Hollywood. You know, Ted Deutsch, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce his name. He's a Democrat from Florida. And he was talking about this thing with Karzai going back and forth because they're trying to extend our forces agreement over there, the long-term security project. And they want to extend this thing. And Karzai is bucking them. He just signed and agreed to a deal with Iran, which ought to tell us everything we know to stop the negotiations and just pull out. And this guy actually says, well, the patience of the Congress and the American people is wearing thin. With all due respect, Mr. Deutsch, that is an understatement of mammoth proportion. We're not wearing thin. We are very, very upset about the fact that literally tens of thousands of our soldiers are either dead or are damaged beyond all recognition and repair. We are very, very upset about the fact that you are loading our military fighting force with drugs, antipsychotic medications, that you're experimenting on them like lab rats, that you are siphoning off the treasure of our nation, that you are simultaneously allowing the growth of the domestic product of poppy, which is the number one crop over there, which, by the way, the Taliban actually kept in check, and it has reached record proportions because you're using that to siphon that dope into the United States of America to keep the rest of the population at bay, to keep them dumb, addicted, dependent, and forgetful. This is the regime that will be the downfall of the greatest nation on earth. It's the last in a long line of traitors. Obama is not the guy who's responsible for all of this. This has been going on for the last 120 years in a real focused effort. They got this problem. It's not that the Constitution is a problem. I'll tell you what the real problem is. It's the problem that for the first 100 years of this country, everybody was taught to believe that your liberty and your freedom were the only thing that mattered. And that's a hard thing to get out of people's minds. And they're trying to win your heart and mind by dependency and enslavement, but willful. The other problem they've got is some half a billion firearms in this country, and they cannot figure out for the life of them how to get rid of them. See, that's the difference between us and every other nation that's had a constitution that said the rights of the people come first and foremost. Mao had that in China. Stalin had that in Russia. Germany had that when Hitler reigned. And they all found ways around it. We're doing the same. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, 2013, and now 2014 are building a systematic infrastructure that is the gallows of liberty and freedom. And I will reiterate the words of Mr. Franklin, that we will all either hang together or assuredly we will all hang separately. We've reached a crisis point in our nation, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm one of many, many Paul Reveres out there shouting from the rooftops, America, awaken, arise, be counted, be fearless and be fierce. Be courageous. Speak out, even when your voice shakes with fear. There are 20, 30, 40,000 Mr. Dobbins. There is an entire government built on tyranny and treason that's running this nation. And we're either going to stand up and fight against it, or we're going to capitulate into the utter darkness. I, for one, won't go quietly. I hope I'm not alone. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. Please find us on the web by visiting americasvoicenow.org or .com. Please find our Facebook page and hit the like button, because then when we post stories, it kind of gets spread. It goes viral. That's what we're trying to do, is educate everybody around us, right? Help us share with your circle of influence. and then share those stories that you see on there that are of interest to you. You can also find us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/America's Voice Now, and facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Basically, just type the phrase into your browser, America's Voice Now, and you'll find us everywhere. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Have yourselves a great day.